Hello children. Today we are going to doing a poem from grade 9, first language English. The Bold Peddler and Robin Hood, written by Francis J. Child. Let's quickly move on to knowing the poet. Poet Francis J. Child was born in the year 1825 and died in the year 1896. He was an American scholar, educator and folklorist. He is best known today for his collection of English and Scottish ballads, now known as the Child's Ballads. Ballads means the poem which are story type. So, they are written in the format of a poem, but they are conveying a story. He was Boylston Professor of Rhetoric meaning writing to influence people, and oratory at Howard University. In 1876, he was named Howard's first professor of English, a position which allowed him to focus on academic research. It was during this time that he began to work on the Child Ballads. They were published in 5 volumes between 1882 and 1898. Before moving on to the content of today's poem, let's learn the words quickly for the better understanding. The first word is trudged. Trudged meaning walk slowly with heavy steps. She trudged through the snow to the shed and rolled down the shutter. So, walking on snow, walking on sand is a little challenging because you cannot walk as fast as you can on a normal road. So, here you trudge, you find it very difficult to walk. So, trudging means walking with heavy steps. The next word is lea, an open air of grassy land. I love to play in the meadow, among the hay, up the water and over the lea. The next word is thrash, beat someone violently. Lawyers will thrash out the details over the next few months. So, here that this does not mean that thrashing, that lawyers will come and thrash us, it means that they will be sending the details in a couple of months. The next word is sheath, a cover for a knife or sharp weapon. She replaced her knife in its sheath and was ready for peace talk. That means she didn't want to fight anymore. The next word is tavern, a pub. This taverns are found mostly in the European culture. Most of them over there drink for the reason that the weather is also extremely cold. So, to keep themselves warm, they also drink. The tavern where the woman suggested was in the center of the city. Now, before going ahead to knowing what it is, let's know about whom it is. It is about Robin Hood. So, who is Robin Hood? We all learn about his stories. Everyone has come across this name a couple of times. So, Robin Hood, there are several versions of Robin Hood stories. However, the first known literary reference to Robin Hood and his men was in 1377. and the Solane manuscripts in the British Museum. It has an account of Robin's life which states that he was born around 1160, where we are not sure of his date and year of birth. One certain fact is that he was a north country man with his traditional haunts as an outlaw in Sherwood Forest, Yorkshire. Robin Hood became a popular folklore hero because of his generosity to the poor and downtrodden peasants. So, here he was a person who would steal from the rich men and go give it to the poor people who needed it more. Let's quickly move on to the poem. There chanced to be a peddler bold he chanced to be. He put his pack all on his back and so merrily trudged over the sea. By chance he met two troublesome men they chanced to be. The one of them was Robin Hood and the other was Little John so free. O peddler, peddler, what is in thy pack? Come speedily and tell me. I have several suits of gay green silk and silken bowstrings, 2 or 3. If you have several suits of gay green silk and silken bowstrings, 2 or 3, then my body cries, Little John, one half of your pack shall belong to me. Oh nay, says the peddler bold. Oh nay, that never can be. For there is never a man from fair Nottingham can take one half my pack from me. Then the peddler pulled off his pack and put it a little below his knee, saying, If you do move me one perch from this, my pack and all shall gang with thee. Then Little John, he drew his sword, the peddler by his pack did stand. They fought until they both did sweat, till he cried, Peddler, pray hold your hand. Then Robin Hood, he was standing by, and he did laugh most heartily, saying, I could find a man of a smaller scale, could thrash the peddler and also thee. Go, you try, master, says Little John. Go, you try, most speedily. Or my body, says Little John, I am sure this night you will know me. Then Robin Hood, he drew his sword, and the peddler by his pack did stand. They fought till the blood in the streams did flow, till he cried, Peddler, pray hold your hand. O peddler, peddler, what is thy name? Come speedily and tell to me. Come, my name I never will tell, till both your names you have told me. The one of us is bold Robin Hood, and the other Little John so free. Now, say the peddler, it lays to my goodwill, whether my name I choose to tell to thee. I am Gamble Gold of the gay green woods, and I travel far beyond the sea for killing a man in my father's land. From my country I was forced to flee. If you are Gamble Gold of gay green woods and travelled far beyond the sea, you are my mother's own sister's son. What nearer cousins can we be? They sheathed their sword with friendly words, so merrily they did agree, and bottle cracked most merrily. So with this, we understand, children, that this poem is written in Old English, where they use thee, thy. So here down the line, English has changed drastically. This is a story of Robin Hood. Robin Hood meets a peddler with his pack, and then Robin Hood is also accompanied with one of his friend called Little John. So when Little John is asking Gamble Gold to give half of his pack, Gamble Gold says, oh, I'm sorry, I cannot, I will not, because they are mine. So Little John starts fighting with Gamble Gold, and then he loses. So Robin Hood starts smiling and laughing heartily, saying that he is such a small built man. So obviously it is very easy for anyone to put him down. Let me see if you can win over me, he says. And then Gamble Gold and Robin Hood start fighting with each other with sword. And then Gamble Gold is a very tough man equally to Robin Hood, and they both fight one on one. But when they are fighting, Robin Hood says, all right, I agree that you're more stronger. What is your name? And then Gamble Gold says, oh really? I will not be telling you my name. First you tell me what your names are. And then Robin Hood says that I am the big Robin Hood and he is Little John. And then now tell me what is your name? So then he says, my name is Gamble Gold, and I have come from my own land where I have murdered a person and I am escaping from there. So he says, okay, are you, Gamble Gold, my mother's sister's son? Oh, then you are my cousin. So they both merrily talk to each other, and then all of them go to a tavern and they enjoy their bottles, that is, enjoy their drinks merrily. We will be going to another segment where we will be learning poetic devices. What are poetic devices? First, we need to know what it actually means. Poetic devices are a form of literary device used in poetry. A poem is created out of poetic devices such as composite, structural, grammatical, rhythmic, metrical, verbal and visual elements. So, for example, not every poem that you have learnt from your nursery till now are not the same. Few of them are very rhythmic, few of them are very bland. So, like these, there are different types of poems, and these different types that we bring in to the structure is known as poetic device. There are many poetic devices, but the most commonly that we use is what we are going to know. The first one is allegory. An allegory is a story, poem or other written work that can be interpreted to have a secondary meaning. So, the poem over here is written in something and the meaning construction would be a different one. The next one is apostrophe. An apostrophe is a poetic device where the writer addresses a person or thing that isn't present with an exclamation. The next one is meter. Meter refers to the rhythm of a poem or other written work as it is expressed through the number and the length of the feet in each line. The next one is ode. An ode is a short lyrical poem often in praise of something. So, basically this is written to praise someone for their achievement or the good that they have done. The next one is repetition. Repetition is fairly self-explanatory. It is the process of repeating certain words or phrases. So, there are certain poems where the repetition of the words or the lines happen. The next one is rhyme. A rhyme is a repetition of syllables at the end of words, often at the end of line of poetry, but there are many unique kinds of rhymes. The next one is rhythm. Rhythm refers to the pattern of long, short, stressed and unstressed syllables in writing. The next one is a sonnet. A sonnet is a 14-line poem with strict rhyme scheme. So, sonnet, if someone refers to you as a sonnet, it has to be strictly a 14-line poem and the rhyme scheme as well. The next one is the rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is a question asked to make a point rather in expectation of an answer. So, here the lot of poems are in a stance where they will convey a message, but in form of a question. The next important segment of a language is grammar. Grammar is very interesting and it also helps you to construct your language and the vocabulary as well. In today's class, we will be learning about active voice and passive voice. So, what do you mean by active voice? The active voice describes a sentence where the subject performs the action stated by the verb. It follows a clear subject plus verb plus object. So, this is a sequence of an active voice. The passive voice means that a subject is a recipient of the verb's action. Active voice and passive voice is the first understanding that we have to do is active voice is always what subject does, and in a passive voice it is always a focus on the action. For example, active voice where Ram killed Ravan. So, here it is speaking in this sentence is speaking about the subject. In the passive sentence, Ravan was killed by Ram. So, here they are giving the focus on the action. Quickly, let us move on to the active passive voice exercise where we can understand better. The first one here is Sally drove the car off the road. First, let us divide the sentence into subject, verb and object. Sally is a subject, drove verb, the car is object. So, Sally, it is a subject about whom we are speaking in the sentence. Verb is an action word where it involves the physical ability. Here it is drove, the car, object of the road. So, here we will have to convert this sentence into passive sentence. Now, what we have to do is interchange. The object comes to the place of subject and the subject comes to the place of object. That means, we are in passive voice focusing on the action. So, the object becomes first. The car was driven off the road by Sally. So, here you have to understand, children, in active voice, the subject comes at the beginning of the sentence and then the subject is what we are speaking about, but whereas in passive voice, we interchange. It is an opposite where the action is first taken into consideration. The car was driven off the road by Sally. The second one is someone has cleaned the window. Here the subject is someone. Has cleaned, the verb is cleaned. It is obviously an action word, so cleaned. The window is object. So, now when we interchange the object into the place of subject and subject into the place of object, how does it happen? The windows were cleaned by someone. So, this is how we convert the active sentences into passive sentences. Let us see how we can construct the passive sentences into active. A novel is being read by Mary. So, who is doing the action here? Mary. So, we have to bring Mary to subject. Mary is reading a novel. The passive sentence in the second one I have given is a stone was being thrown by the kid. So, here the kid is doing the action. So, action word now we have to convert it into a subject. And who is the subject that we are speaking about? The kid. A kid was throwing a stone. Or you can also write the kid was throwing a stone. Now, if you are given a few sentences, we have to understand as to how we should identify whether this is an active sentence or a passive sentence. What is the rule of identifying the same? How to identify if a sentence is active or passive? Find the verb and ask who or what. If the who or what that performed the action is at the beginning of the sentence is active, else it is passive. So, let us quickly move on to doing some exercise with identifying the active or passive voice. The first one is I will clean the house every Saturday. Who will clean the house? Here it is I. And where is it? It is in the beginning of the sentence. So, it becomes an active sentence. I over here is the subject in this sentence. So, and it is coming in the beginning as well. So, here we meet both the conditions. The first one is that finding out the subject and then it should be at the beginning of the sentence. The second one is a forest fire destroyed the whole suburb. What destroyed the forest? Forest fire. So, forest fire for the condition 1 is that it is coming at the beginning of the sentence and it is also answering for the verb. So, this is an active sentence. The next one is a movie is going to be watched by us. By whom? By us. So, here it is the receiving action is being received. So, it is at the end of the sentence as well, and that is why it is a passive sentence. The metal beams were corroded by the salt water. By what? By the salt water. So, here it is a passive voice again because it is answering by what and it is coming at the end of the sentence. It is receiving an action. So, it is a passive sentence.
Active and passive voice. In this video, we will look at how to form the passive, and then we will consider why we would use it in our academic writing. The passive, or the passive voice, is not a tense. The term voice describes the relationship between the verb, the subject, and the object of a sentence. We use the active or passive voice to emphasize different parts of a sentence. New learners of English generally learn the active voice first. Here is an example sentence in the active voice. The teacher showed a film about deep and surface approaches to learning. This sentence, like many in the active voice in English, has the following structure: subject plus verb plus object. This subject-verb-object order, or SVO, is the most common structure in English, so you are probably very familiar with it. The passive voice is formed by changing the order of the active sentence so that the object of the active sentence becomes the subject of the new sentence. Meanwhile, the subject of the active sentence becomes known as the agent, and the passive sentence would be: a film about deep and surface approaches to learning was shown by the teacher. Notice that the verb showed has now been changed to was shown. Both of these are in the past tense because when forming the passive voice, we don't change the tense. Notice also that the form of the verb be must maintain subject-verb agreement with the new subject, as in this example. A film was shown by the teacher, but 2 films were shown by the teacher. We need to consider when and why we would choose to use the passive voice instead of the active. First, it is better to use the passive voice when we want readers to focus on the result of an action rather than the person or thing that is doing it. For example, we might say, a free trade agreement between Australia and Indonesia has been announced by the Foreign Minister, rather than the Foreign Minister has announced a free trade agreement between Australia and Indonesia, because we're more interested in the free trade agreement than the Foreign Minister. We would also use the passive voice if the agent of the sentence is obvious or not relevant or repetitive within the text. For example, we would say, glass is classified as a solid, rather than scientists classify glass as a solid. Lastly, the passive voice is preferred if we want to avoid naming the agent of the action. For example, we would say, women, because of their biological function as childbearers, were traditionally confined to the home, rather than men traditionally confined women to the home because of the female's biological function as childbearers. The passive voice is quite common in academic writing, especially when writing about experiments and processes where the agent is usually not stated. For example, we might say, the mixture is heated to 300 degrees. Of course, the writer always needs to use the correct tense within the passive sentence, as within active sentences. Can you name the tenses in the examples on the screen? You can pause the video if you need more time. Here is an example of another process, this time related to law. The man was arrested. Then he was detained in a cell for 3 hours before being released. Notice the different tenses being used in the passive form. In academic writing, the passive is also frequently used to introduce ideas using the word it. For example, it is often suggested that, it is argued that, it has been argued that, it has been said that. Pay attention to whether it is common in the textbooks, journal articles, and other academic sources written by expert writers in your discipline. Also remember this guiding principle. Make sure your choice of active or passive voice is intentional and deliberate. That means you know why you are using it to emphasize information and make your meanings clear to the reader.
Home assignment. This I want you to think and write. The Peddler stands for integrity. the peddler, that is Gamble Gold, he stands for integrity. Do you agree with this view? If you do or if you don't, you will have to justify as to why. Describe the brawl, that is the fight between three men. So, once Gamble Gold and Little John fought, and you have to describe the entire scene, and then Gamble Gold and Robin Hood fought. So, you will have to describe the fight between these three men. The third one is construct a summary and identify the active and passive voice in the same. So, here I have given you the entire poem and then I have explained it to you. You have to write a summary and then identify in the summary the lines which are active and passive. Thank you, children. You all have a wonderful time ahead and happy learning.